To those who came early for the Networking at the Hill event, and thanks to Sean and Jennifer and Jody and everybody who helped make that happen. We're going to do it the last Wednesdays of every month. Welcome now to 1 Million Cups St. Paul. This is a weekly event where we highlight 2 startups. They each get 6 minutes to present, and then we get 20 minutes after each presentation to ask questions, give them constructive feedback, and hopefully connect them to resources. The point is for us to be a friendly yet challenging audience and get them farther along than when they came through the door. And that's our whole point. This happens in over 60 cities across the United States every Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Rod from Awear Technologies. Thanks, Rod. We can pause.
Thank you very much, Lee. So my name is Rod Greeter with Awear Technologies, and we are developing a wearable to help kids see what they think to improve learning outcomes. And I'd like to start with a little story of a son of a friend of mine, and I'd like to read it verbatim. He says, "I can't for the life of me remember the last time I felt genuine emotion. It hasn't always been that way. I was introduced to a little pill that in a sense took away my ability to sense. This little pill goes by the name Adderall, a drug designed to fix kids with attention deficit disorder." How many of you know a child who has ADD or ADHD? Okay. How many of you wish that you could pay better attention multiple times every day? Yeah, it's a huge issue. 11% of our population has been diagnosed with ADHD, 11%. And the CDC has documented that about 30% of students have periodic or chronic attention challenges that affect learning. And about 34% of fourth graders, according to the Department of Education, can't read at a grade level. And those things are connected. Attention is the portal to learning. If you don't attend, you can't learn. So what the need that we're trying to address is how to pay attention when you don't want to. I've been in the classroom. My background is primarily in corporate product development and marketing, but I've been doing teaching, consulting, training for about 12 years because that's one of my passions. So I've been in the classroom for about 10 years and witnessed firsthand how kids struggle to pay attention these days. And we're told it's the video game generation. We have to hook them. We have to flip our classrooms. We have to use video. We have to gamify our classrooms. We have to make it more exciting. And after thinking about that for a while, I said, no, I think we're doing kids a disservice. By doing that, we're catering to their learned helplessness. The real world is still low stimulus. You have to pay attention when you don't want to. You have to sit in meetings and listen to people. The boss sticks his head in your office and starts talking for 5 minutes, and when he's done, do you say, hey, could you send me the video? No, you have to listen. So that was the genesis of the idea of how can we help kids improve that attention, their attention capabilities under low stimulus environments. If we look at what's called the learning tree, if you're familiar with pedagogy of how we learn, and people have tried to address this attention issue in lots of different ways. One way is by modifying the classroom. Well, how can we improve with video, with audio, with how the classroom itself is instructed, using smart boards as an example? How can we use games? How can we incorporate devices? The BYOD, bring your own device to school. How can we use multimedia and brain training games? And then on the other side, how can we do behavioral intention to kids who are hyperactive, who can't sit still, who don't have the opportunity to learn? And unfortunately, one of the options has been medication, such as the personal story I just shared of the son of a friend. But all of these address symptoms. They really address symptoms. They don't deal with the root cause. What we're trying to do is address that root cause. What's going on at a cognitive level, at a neural level, that we can modify that opens up this entire portal to learning, focusing on the root cause. So if you think about how we were assisted, and I put that lightly, to pay attention in the old school. I know when I was going to school, it was not uncommon for the teacher to walk around with a ruler Anybody that old school as me? Maybe slap on the desk, maybe before we became too politically correct, maybe even rap you on the knuckles to get your attention. Well, obviously that's not the way we're going to help our kids pay attention these days. The new school of attention training, and the way we're focusing on it and approaching it, is with a wearable. With a wearable, whereby we use electrodes through using EEG to determine brain state activity. We analyze that, run it through an algorithm, and then provide a visual cue to the student about when they've mind wandered. So we're giving them greater awareness of where their mind is, helping them to see what they think. So what is neurocognitive feedback? How will the device work? It's built off of operant conditioning. Everybody's heard of Pavlov's dogs, right? That when they heard the bell, they start to salivate because they knew the feed was coming. This is also operant conditioning and behavioral feedback. It's been approved by the American Academy of Pediatrics as an effective therapy for ADHD. And here's how it would work. Detects the brain activity by testing brain signals. When it identifies that your mind is wandering, and we can detect that, it darkens the lenses to get your attention, literally and figuratively. Then you readjust. You say, oh, geez, I was mind wandering. You readjust, you become attentive, and then it clears the lenses, and now you can go on reading. So this is a wearable that can be read while you're reading, while you're listening, while you're studying, real time. And that's important, and I'll get to that here in a second. We are collaborating with the University of Minnesota Institute of Child Development. We are completing a pilot trial right now with 45 9 to 12-year-olds. Some of the data has just come in. And this is the gold standard using a 128-channel EEG system in the Zalaza lab at the Institute. And this is how we've developed our algorithm to say which signals correlate to which behaviors. And then that's what we'll program into our wearable for detection. So the child would sit in front of a screen here. This is a spaceship. The spaceship only moves when they're attentive. When they mind wander, the spaceship stops. And we're measuring what's going on in the brain activity, what's happening to beta waves, alpha waves, gamma waves. And we're detecting what are those correlations between the brain signals and the attention capabilities. And then we test them using the NIH strategic cognitive toolbox at the end to say, well, how are we improving attention using normalized tests? So smart eyewear, that's the category that we fall into. I'm sure everybody's heard of wearables, right? It's the new hottest category. The Apple Watch, there's all kinds of smart watches, wearable clothes that can monitor your heart rate, your pulse, lots of things. You've all heard of Google Glass. They are repositioning it. They're partnering now to come out with a new version. They're going to reprice it, reposition it. Facebook spent $2 billion for a company called Oculus, which is in the virtual reality business. And about 2 weeks ago, Intel, who missed the internet trend and the mobile trend, have said they're going to win in internet-enabled eyewear, and they made a $25 million investment. So this is a hot area. We've got a patent pending, and I think we've got a leg up on some of the other competitors. We've gotten funding from NIH, Department of Education. We're just starting an NSF grant. We've gotten received about $500,000 in funding to date. A lot of people ask, well, does this work? Yes, there's literature. There's randomized clinical trials showing that attention training does work. We can improve reading comprehension. We can improve grade equivalence in terms of reading capabilities. Also, neurofeedback in schools has been proven to work. What we're trying to do is scale it, take it from the clinic to the classroom. So we can drive down the scores of inattention. We can drive down hyperactivity. It works. A number of collaborators, I've already mentioned the University of Minnesota, University of Wisconsin Learning and Transfer Lab is also working with us. We have a corporate partner, Learning RX. Anybody familiar with Learning RX? How about Huntington, Sylvan? Okay, them you've heard of. Learning RX is an analog of Huntington and Sylvan, only they focus on cognitive skills, not remedial algebra. They're saying you don't get algebra because you're not paying attention. You're not sitting still. You don't have cognitive flexibility. They're trying to fix those cognitive behavioral portals to allow kids to learn. They were involved in our pilot trial that we're finishing right now. And we have just put in another proposal to the Institute for Educational Sciences, and we've lined up 2 leading schools in the Twin Cities to help with that next pilot study, Upper Mississippi Academy and Twin Cities Academy. Some recent recognition: we won the EdTech category at Techni in 2014. We were a semifinalist in the Minnesota Cup, and we were a visionary finalist in Intel's Make It Wearable competition last year. So what are some of the advantages of what we're trying to do? Why us? Is that we're trying to address the root causes of the behavior. Drugs don't do that. Once the drug is out of your system, the benefit goes away. There's no sustainable improvement. Once we change neural pathways, those benefits are sustained. They stay. They stay. So we're providing long-term sustained improvements. We're working on skills that are transferable to primary activities. How many of you have heard of Lumosity, Brain HQ, other brain training games? What's a problem with them? Anybody know? A fundamental problem they have? It doesn't last. It doesn't transfer is the problem. You become very good at the game, but those skills are hostage to the game itself. You get into the classroom, it doesn't transfer. Our device is designed to be worn in the classroom while you're reading, while you're listening, while you're studying at home, and you're improving the attentional pathways that are involved in that activity. There's no transference needed. Safer than drugs, cheaper than one-on-one intervention in drugs, and as I mentioned, we're trying to scale neurofeedback and neurocognitive training from the clinic to the classroom. So here's some questions I thought I'd maybe seed the cloud here with some questions. Here's some things that I'd like answers to. And I'd welcome any other questions, comments, suggestions that you might have. Yes?
So what is the cost for one of these units?
Good question. The cost that we're focused on right now is about $1,500 for one unit. It's sold to a school or to a learning center and can be used by up to 10 students. So the effective cost per student is $150, very affordable.
And then what's sort of your target audience? Is there certain areas that might be more successful, like that 9 to 12 range, or like 12 to 15, or is there sort of an area where it doesn't have where is it most effective?
The brain plasticity and malleability is most effective in the pre-adolescent stage, and anywhere from 3 years old to 13. So that's the prime spot. Our pilot study that we're doing right now is 9 to 12-year-olds. But it can be effective through the lifespan, could be useful in reversing and stopping cognitive decline for someone who's 83. But brain plasticity is the most malleable from 3 to 13. We'd ideally like to use it to improve executive function skills in early childhood education. But we have an issue right now with our testing to keep the kids wearing the wearable. 9 to 12-year-olds will do it. Okay, the younger kids not so much. Yes?
From my understanding of the vision, you said that when attention fades away and you pretty much vacuum the Awear, what led you to use that vacuum of the Awear as a way to bring somebody back to pay attention?
It's not entirely darkened, it's just kind of a flash. It turns gray. It doesn't totally disrupt their vision, but it's enough to get their attention. Why the visual feedback is because if you use audible feedback or tactile feedback, think about it. You can set your phone to vibrate. What happens after about 2 to 3 minutes? You can have your phone, say, vibrate every 30 seconds. What happens after 2 to 3 minutes? You ignore it. You ignore it. Same way with audible feedback. We tend to ignore it. Visual feedback, much harder for our sensory mechanism to override that. So the darkening is very short. It's not completely darkening, but it's enough to get their attention. It interrupts their pattern, yes. Interrupts their eyesight. Our eyesight is absolutely critical. Our sensory mechanism does not override that. Yes?
How long does a participant take, how long are they in the program, or how long does it take to I know it's different from each individual, but how long is it every time someone's in the program? Or
we're still in the process of determining that. Our pilot trial was 10 weeks. And that's kind of what we're shooting for. It may end up being longer than that. Most other neurofeedback treatments that are done in clinics now, or the cognitive skill training that's done at a Learning RX center, is 20 weeks. But there are some new algorithms, and some that we're going to be testing, that can dramatically shorten that time period. So we're thinking 10 weeks. Yes?
My daughter has ADHD, and she's in a strategies class with help with focus and things like that. And I think part of what I see with her is she kind of feels embarrassed to be in that strategies class. And what I wonder is, would this be on all the students, so kids wouldn't be kind of singled out? You know, obviously it's pretty obvious if someone has one of those on that they have some kind of issue with focus. How are you going to kind of maybe navigate that?
Yeah, good question on the adoption. And 2 or 3 years ago, I was really struggling with that too. But now with wearables coming the way they are, we're not going to be the only wearable. There are going to be smart watches, there's going to be body sensors, there's probably going to be other smart eyewear out there. It's not going to be so foreign. It's not going to be so foreign. And when I say go to the classroom, that's not our first entree, or that's not where we're going to enter market first. It's probably going to be in a learning center where it's a little bit more private, individualized. Could also be used at home, you know, to kind of keep it, kind of remove some of that stigma. But eventually we see it used in classrooms. But we don't think we're going to be the first to market in terms of wearables in classrooms. Yes?
Can you go back to, in terms of what data you need to see, you can go back to the one where, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So it looks like, yeah, the attention trained is obviously better, but what does that really mean? Is it, you know, they're getting better in math, or can you show the results in testing, or how do you show the results? Is it better in reading? Is it better in math? And, you know, is that, how significant is that? And is that going to be a barrier in terms of price? Like, is it really going to be worth it for somebody to invest?
This is a reading comprehension score, and we show the significance here pre-post, so that there is a significant gain in that percentile reading, and it is significantly better than the control. So we are seeing an improvement in reading comprehension and reading fluency. And as much as, what is that? That's almost a grade level. It's significant, very significant. Parents pay Learning RX for a 20-week program $5,000 to $10,000 to see that kind of an increase per child. Yes?
How do those numbers compare with doing drugs?
With doing drugs. What kind of drugs? No. No, good question. You will see some improvements like this, but again, they're not maintained. They're only there when the drugs are in the system. And they're going to cost that student or the parents, if they're not covered by insurance, $300 to $400 a month. Okay? But the difference is, when the drug's not in the system, there's no improvement. Yes?
So regarding how the device fades in and out when you lose the attention, what's the delay like? Let's say I'm wearing the device and my mind wanders and it goes gray. How long does it take to go back to normal and focusing? What's the delay?
About a half a second right now, and we're trying to fine-tune that. Yeah. Yes?
From a market perspective, so you're entering a barrier-rich market. Teachers, kids, parents, hearing some of it today. Do you have a retail strategy for the adults? It would seem that barrier would be limited. $1,500 is peanuts. If there's any effect on my professional advancement or, frankly, focusing on my life. But
This will be on YouTube, you know. Yeah.
But anyway, so from a retail standpoint and a market penetration, I would think that the attacking the adult market would be, frankly, almost ready to go.
Yeah, excellent point. And why are we targeting kids in schools? It's because that's my passion. Okay?
So if that's your passion, then why not create a retail market and give it to the schools?
Okay, possibility. Our first target is not to get into schools. You saw that we're working with Learning RX. We're going at the commercial market first. They've already signed some support letters and letters of intent that once we're ready to go commercial, they're going to use it in their learning centers. We're going to use that as an evidence base to move into schools.
100 of them, I'll sell them to us.
Okay. Yes. And your name is? Go ahead.
Are you a for-profit, or a benefit corp?
We are a for-profit. We've looked at the benefit corp. We haven't made a decision on that yet, but right now for-profit.
Especially with your mission of wanting to deliver this to children, I think that would probably be a good position, or a good start.
Yes, absolutely, and we are considering that. I kind of need to know the pros and cons and how investors, VCs interpret that. So I'm taking my time and deliberating on that decision, but I see the value in it. Absolutely, yes.
I have 5 kids, and 2 of them have this issue, and the younger son, he's really starting getting into it, the Learning RX, the neurologist, the whole thing. And, it's a situation of compliance. And the kid doesn't want to comply. He wants to drink his Mountain Dew and wants to stay up late playing video games, doesn't want to get, do the program. It's very difficult. So the Learning RX, if I haul the kid in there, he'll conceptually do it. But, the price point of that's huge. $5,000 to $10,000 for this thing and no guarantees of compliance or results. So I kind of run into this situation of no insurance reimbursement, check out of pocket, the alternative is to write a check for a couple of $3,000 and me as a dad having to do it with my kid. It ain't going to happen. At least it's not going to work. So limiting yourself to Learning RX, personally, I think you're looking at being able to attack 2% of the entire market. I think there's very limited distribution of kids are actually, of parents that can actually write that check. And so I think you're a much bigger product than that. I totally agree over here that when people are willing to start spending money, they're going to start spending money when they have executive processing issues. And that's usually their junior year of high school on into college. That's really the big in your face, now you get C's and D's. You're not pushing your way through A's and B's. And that's when I was looking to spend money on the kid. But his compliance wasn't going to be there.
Right. No, excellent point. And if they don't wear it, there's no benefit. It is compliance. That's an industry-wide problem for anything.
Much quicker, get much more VC if you've got his approach to rolling with this thing. Learning RX sounds good, but it's going to be a very slow process, and I'm afraid it's going to really slow down your market share development. So just be aware of that.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes.
As somebody who grew up with ADD, and my daughter has ADD, one aspect of having ADD is it's actually a lot of fun sometimes. It's a different way of thinking, and while I definitely see the benefits here in dealing with wandering, or as I think of it, you're thinking about everything all the time. It's not attention deficit, it's attention surplus disorder. How do you preserve some of the benefits and the things that are actually enjoyable about it? Or does it do that?
Yeah, how this is different than medications is what we're really doing here is everybody's heard about mindfulness, right? The latest rage of mindfulness. That's what this is creating. It's mindfulness. It's giving you awareness where you can make the choice. Do I focus on this or do I focus on that? It makes you conscious at that moment of choice. It's mindfulness. So it's not saying you can't attend to multiple things. It's just making you aware that you're doing that.
Right. As you noted on the first slide, the medication problem can sometimes take the edge off.
Absolutely.
Exciting and entertaining.
Yeah, and it's not a side effect of this. This is about giving you awareness and mindfulness so you can make a conscious decision. Do I want to attend or not? Sometimes we want to mind wander. Learning occurs when we do mind wander, right? We hear a new concept, we mind wander and connect it to an old concept. That's good. We're just saying be conscious that you just did that. It's awareness. It's awareness.
Just one more question from the audience.
Okay, yes.
You mentioned that you're going to sell these things for $1,500 and up to 10 people can use them. I want to figure out how you're limiting that, but also wouldn't it be better to have a subscription model where it's give it away for free and charge $50 per use or $100 per use on an ongoing basis rather than selling it up front? It sounds like, you know, the benefits there, the revenue stream would be much greater.
Yeah, and we're kind of exploring that. Yeah, a subscription model on a license to an institution and then a subscription based on number of users. So we hear you. I hear what you're saying there. Why the limit of 10 users per device is that it needs to be used 45 minutes per person about 3 times per week. So by the time you schedule all of that, it comes down to 10 kids can be doing one device at one time, given when they can get out of school, when they can come in. 10 seems to be a manageable number. But I like the subscription model approach too.
And our last question, Rod, is always, what now can the community do for you after you've gotten all this feedback and all these questions?
Well, we're looking for other potential collaborators. I said we've got a few schools lined up. We can never have enough authentic educational settings where we can test the device. So recommendations on schools, learning centers, charter schools, wherever we can do some testing here in the next 12 months.
How much money are you looking for?
We are, great question. We're launching a crowdfunding in about a month, and we are looking for about $250,000 total to do our next round of testing. So it's going to be experiment.com. We'd love to have you join us and can spread the word on that as well. If you have a personal interest in this, would like to see this be effective, please come and help with our crowdfunding. Experiment.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wagner, I have a software company called Congruence. We build configuration monitoring tools for complex software systems. Well, what is that and why are we doing that? Let's start with the problem. Things go wrong. You have a system that's got a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved with working on it. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong. And these things are very expensive. If you're paying millions of dollars a year to run a system, well, you're losing money on direct costs from the developers and operations engineers who are trying to get it running again. You're losing opportunity costs because they're not building a new system for you. They're not building fun features and new products. You're losing customers. You have customers who are not able to use your system. I can show you an example of that later if you ask. And your customers may be losing money too. And finally, there's an HR risk. This sort of work can be very stressful and not satisfying for the engineers who are working on it. And they can leave because they can get a job in a week. And it can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace a lead engineer. Try which hand is doing which job here. So take a moderately complex system. You have system A and system B. Somebody makes a change to system A. Now system B is broken. System A is fine, it doesn't know anything went wrong. System B has no idea what went wrong. And the only way to fix system B is to find out system A changed. Might be a different team, it might be a technology that system B's team doesn't really understand. It's probably something that they don't really have visibility into. So this is really an ugly problem. And the main reason things break in large complex systems is because somebody changed something. But you have to change it. You have to change it all the time. You're adding new features, you're fixing bugs, you're adding security patches. You can't just freeze this. So Congruence is focused on helping teams understand what changed so they can fix the problems faster. Now, this problem has been around since the first time 2 different people had to write 2 different programs that work together. So why is this a different solution? Historically, the industry is focused on problem prevention. We have sophisticated processes. We have DevOps and Agile and ITIL. Systems designed to reduce the amount of human error involved. And we have tooling, we have version control systems, infrastructure automation. All of this is designed to prevent errors. And after decades of this, systems still break. And they continue to break, and they continue to break at the same pace they've always broken, which is about as much as we can tolerate. Now, if your system is broken, your configuration management systems failed. Congruence is a monitoring system. It's not trying to control your world, it's trying to tell you what's going on in your world. So you can use congruence when your system is broken to understand what might have happened. And recovery, again, is a very hard problem and the worst work that software engineers do. I should spend about 10 seconds on this slide. Yes, tens of thousands of businesses write their own software. They have their own unique business problems. They have a market opportunity that they see. They have to write software for it. They all have this problem. The enterprise software market is tremendous. Tooling is a $300 billion market. As an example, there's a company called Splunk. They're about 10 years old. They build log parsing tools. They have a similar customer base to Congruence. They have a similar pricing model. They generate $300 million of revenue a year and growing, and they're a publicly traded company. And there are lots of companies in this space like that. This is a lot of money. And why are we doing this? Well, I've worked in enterprise software for over 20 years now, mostly doing configuration management. I've been dealing with this pain for a long, long time. And I kept seeing the same problems over and over at different jobs, and it's like, well, can't I have that? I wish a product existed that does this. Wait, no product exists that does this. I brought in my friend Mark Schumann to help. Mark and I have been friends for 30 years now. He has 20-odd years of industry experience. Mark's primary focus lately has been consulting with software development teams that are having trouble building software effectively and making them more efficiently, so it's a very closely related problem. And we've recently brought on board Andrew Robbins to help. He's here today, and he's a UI and UX designer to help us build a more efficient user interface. Now, the reason to do this, for a lot of reasons, is to make money. So what's our revenue model? Early on, we're doing direct sales to small and medium businesses, companies that we believe have problems that we can help them with. One of our customers should generate about 5 to 20K of revenue per year. This is renewable evergreen revenue. Every year they're paying us to keep using our software. As the company grows and becomes more successful, we will start relying on inbound small and medium businesses. Companies that have heard of us have heard of other companies, their peers, that are benefiting from our software. They want help too. We can also then attack the large enterprise, the 3Ms and the Targets and the Best Buys of the world. Companies like that are used to paying hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars for software contracts that can solve enterprise-wide problems. We can also start working with resellers. Much of the software industry, especially for the enterprise, is done through resellers, so companies can limit their sales footprint. Resellers love products like ours. And a big benefit of Congruence is this is a very sticky product. The longer you use it, the more valuable it becomes. You could have years of accumulated configuration information about your system that you can data mine and learn trends and learn the real problem spots. Move. But to get there, well, it's going to take a while. Right now, we are just entering beta. We're working with several potential clients. We're hoping to have 1 to 3 beta customers signed by the end of February. 3 is about all we could handle at the moment. And with a goal of 20 customers by the end of 2015. If we can get 20 customers by the end of 2015, we can hit a $1 million a year run rate in 2016. But that's going to be a difficult problem. It's a scaling problem. So right now, investment would be a big help. Ideally, we should have a core development team of 4 to 5 engineers get me out of the programming business and into the sales business. And those 4 to 5 engineers would be building product. They would also be supporting our customers and finding new opportunities, ways to make Congruence more useful. We would also like to be able to hire consultants for specific technologies. A lot of enterprise technologies are very deep and require years of training and expertise to master. We could hire consultants to come in, help us build monitoring for these very complex systems that our customers have already paid maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars for. And as we achieve product market fit, which I'm defining as there's more sales than I could possibly handle on my own, we start hiring sales staff and have a repeatable sales process. We start hiring marketing to become more well-known and grow, grow, grow. And my phone is not cooperating again. But the goals are very simple. Start with happier engineers. This has been my job. I understand the end user very deeply. I know how much their job sucks. I don't want their job to suck. And if you have happier engineers, you also have happier businesses. They're making more money. They're building better products. They have more stability. And happier customers because your systems are more reliable. And that's it for now. So, questions? Yes.
I'm still trying to understand if I am unhappy engineer, because I lived that situation back in the previous life, and I definitely want to have something like that. But let's say I get the product today for whatever configuration my enterprise has of IT systems. When I keep adding systems to that, how does your product adapt to the growth of products that I'm actually creating in my enterprise?
It should be very easy to add more systems internally to Congruence, saying we're dealing with the idea that your system is changing. That includes that you're adding new servers, you're adding new components within your servers. Congruence is an agent-based system, so there's just a simple agent to install, and then you can just start turning on monitors. So if you've worked with other monitoring systems, it's not terribly different. Yes.
Scalability, you say you can only handle 3 customers right now in beta, then you're trying to hit to 20. I mean, there must be, 20 million customers around the world, right?
Right.
So how do you handle 10%? How do you handle 2 million customers? Is it an army of computer people to handle that, or can you scale at some point?
Well, I personally cannot handle 2 million customers. And it will require some attention, but if you have customers, you can justify buying staff to support them. Also, those early customers are a learning experience. Right now, we're alpha testing within our own systems and what I call eating my own dog food. And I know the problems I'm encountering, I know what I'm learning, but when I put it out in the wild into a customer system, every environment's a little different. I will learn what matters more to customers, then you learn the next customer and you build a better system. So a relatively slow approach is in part to make sure I'm building the best possible product before I hit the market in a big way.
So just follow up. Eventually, when you start expanding your customer base significantly, are you able to duplicate fairly inexpensively, or do you have to add staff, a significant staff for every growth?
We're approaching that in 2 directions. One is we will try to make it easier and easier and less work for us and less work for the customer, frankly, to install this system. So this is going to be a process of continuous refinement and improvement and learning from the reality of customers. As far as scaling, we're using a cloud-based software as a service. So when you add a customer, we just run a script and voila, the customer has a new system. They download some agents and start running them in their environment. So ideally, it will become more and more efficient.
So what's the real sweet spot for you in this beta testing and then going forward initially?
The sweet spot,
Size of company, that kind of thing.
I'm looking for small to medium businesses that are developing software internally. Some of the customers I'm talking to are custom software development houses that develop applications for other customers. One in particular, they are trying to capture more operational business, because if you can support the software and run the software that you wrote for somebody else, that's a very lucrative market. If they can do better operations, they can capture more business. I don't want to tackle companies that are too large and complex right now because it's a lot of work. I want to be able to scale to larger companies and larger projects later on.
So, as a fellow developer, I understand how it works. I understand the system, working with you as well. So, what would be the elevator pitch that you would presumably pitching to someone who's not a developer? What's the elevator pitch of how this thing works?
The elevator, I have for a long time used the System A, System B, two hands elevator pitch, because most people understand that. Even if you don't work in enterprise software, you've upgraded your antivirus and suddenly your browser doesn't work. I mean, everybody in this room has experienced problems like that. Interactions between different pieces of software is a very familiar space. It's just when you start scaling up into the enterprise space and now it costs $1,000 a minute for your system to be down, that's a different problem. Yes?
Who's your competition and why are you distinct?
The competition, well, doing nothing is the primary competition, and having long, complicated phone calls from 3 different continents with people yelling at each other, that's the competition. Other competition, though, primarily is the front-loaded, try to prevent anything from going wrong approach. Well, we will do ITIL, and we will bring in process experts, and then there won't be any human error. And we will introduce Chef and Puppet and a continuous integration system, and then our software will be fully tested and never break. And that has never, ever worked. I've been in this industry for 20 years. When I started, we were building continuous integration systems out of stone knives and bear skins. And I've watched the tooling improve extraordinarily over the last 2 decades. But the reliability has not improved one bit. If anything, it's gotten worse. I think we build software to the limits of failure. Software tends to live in this little world between barely works and doesn't work. We're trying to keep it on the barely works line, but nobody builds beyond barely works. Because you'd rather put your effort into adding features or building new products than trying to make your existing product a whole lot more reliable. That only makes the engineers happy. That doesn't make the business happy.
So, are you in the medical industry too, or do you deal with like clients or any of that?
That is one of my driving concerns. I have worked in a wide variety of industries, in particular financial and in healthcare, where I've dealt with HIPAA compliance and PCI, Sarbanes-Oxley, other regulatory systems that can be very restrictive. A really common problem that I encountered on large systems, I've worked on multiple $50 million plus projects, is developers are not allowed to look at production. Because there's customer data there, it's HIPAA compliant, you don't allow the 30 offshore people in India to go look at American customer data. So when systems break down in production because they're slightly different from what was tested, you sit on a 3-hour phone call reading hundreds of parameters out of WebSphere over the phone. It's terrible. There's no good way to compare the production environment to the test environment. This is one of the things Congruence does. I can easily compare different systems and find just what's different about them. And I can leak that information out because I'm not leaking anything really sensitive. No customer data comes out, but I can compare 2 database schemas. No customer data comes out, but I can compare the Etsy file system on a Unix box. Yes?
I think you mentioned this earlier with the in-house tech guy. We've all experienced that at work or somewhere where it's, things go down, put in a ticket, so-and-so will come and fix it, that kind of stuff. That's very real for me, I've experienced that. Is that, you sort of market that, say, you're spending on average this amount per year on your tech team. We're obviously not looking at eliminating people's jobs in those sector, but we can help you save this amount of money, or is that who you're competing with really? Because most places are going to have an in-house tech person they have right there that they can fix it quick.
I'm not trying to eliminate the in-house tech person and try to prevent problems. That's my competition. And they're lying to you if they say they can prevent all the problems. I'm trying to shorten the amount of time that in-house tech person is working. Again, if the system that you're responsible for broke down because some other system changed and you don't have access to the configuration of that system, you might not even know who owns it. I've been on a system where part of our application broke because a firewall we had never heard of broke down. This was because I was at a Fortune 50 company, and Fortune 50 companies are, like small cities. So trying to shorten that repair cycle, I would estimate, and typical from the feedback I've gotten from other people in the field, about 75% of problem fixing is problem discovery. And trying to figure out, well, why did this go wrong? And a lot of that is information that is either inaccessible because you don't have permission to see it, or it's incomprehensible because, well, you give me access to an Oracle console, I still can't make heads or tails of it. Or it just gets thrown out. Well, we applied a patch, but now we don't know what the system looked like before we applied the patch. So trying to simplify that. Yes?
There is a big trend in IT which is called big data analytics. Do you have the type of analytics component with Congruence where somebody gets some reporting, meaningful reporting of what's happening in their system?
Yeah, sometimes I describe Congruence as a very small big data problem. It kind of is. It would be very easy for a Congruence system to have 1,000 different monitors. If each monitor is reporting once a minute is 1,440 times a day. Now you're generating 1.5 million readings a day. Maybe 1 in 10,000 actually has change content. You might have 100 changes a day throughout your system, but you have to do 1.5 million readings to find them. So it is something of a big data problem. I'm very interested in the potential for analytics. I'm also interested in the potential of doing anonymous analytics across systems so I can compare, well, here's sort of the results you're seeing compared to what we're seeing in the average across all of the Congruence customers. Yes?
Having one of the customers is very easy to do business. What sort of research is done to see what other companies out there, whether they're interested in?
I've been working on this problem for about 2 years, looking very intensely for competition. And part of my motivation when this started was there isn't a product that I can buy that allows me to compare the test environment and the production environment when they're firewalled off from one another. There isn't a product I could buy that can tell me, well, when's the last time the database schema changed? There was nothing on the market at the time. I would have known about it. Yes, yes. I've spoken to literally hundreds of engineers over the course of this. The closest competition I've seen is a company called Tripwire, who were around in the 90s. They sell exclusively as a security tool, and their tool really hasn't evolved in a decade. They were bought out, and they just keep selling the same thing over and over. There are a couple of other interesting competitors in the space in California right now. In fact, I met these 2 other companies in October, and none of us knew about the existence of the other, and we all had the same idea within about 6 months of one another. So it's sort of a zeitgeist thing. Cloud technology is enabling a new way of studying complex systems while we're seeing this complexity go up. When I was a kid, we had a 200 server system. We thought it was huge, and it's easy to have a 2,000 server system now. So, yeah, I've been looking very intensely for alternatives and how people are solving this problem, and I think I'm focused very narrowly. But certainly there will be competition because this is a big problem and there's a lot of opportunity here. Any more questions?
That's probably all the time we have for questions at this point. The last question that we always like to ask our presenters is what this community can do for you.
Well, I'm looking for two things right now. One, I'm looking for more small and medium businesses that develop software in-house, preferably locally, where I can go in and talk to them directly, both as potential beta customers and potential early customers, or even potential later customers. And I'm also starting to look for investors. I've been avoiding looking for investment, but as we go into production, the support needs are going to go up tremendously. And it's not really a good use of my time to be writing software. I should be working with customers and sales. I can write software. I like writing software, but I'm not in this to be a programmer. I can do that for a lot less effort. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and presenting today, David. Thank all of you for coming to 1 Million Cups. Sean and Jennifer for having the networking earlier on. Please make sure to leave a business card in the basket at the end of the table there if you want to continue to get emails to connect with that event. Here for our event, we'd like that if you RSVP to attend, whether you make it or not, you'll be able to get on the email list so that you're able to continue to see what we have to offer here at 1 Million Cups that meets every week. I want to thank Lee George and Greg Folks of The Hill. I'm Paul, another organizer, Gray Cloud Studio. I want to thank City Kid Java for providing us coffee. They are a social enterprise helping at-risk youth. Be sure that you understand that we do networking here every week and that there are many opportunities here at the Hill for doing business research. There are over 25 databases with librarians to assist you in your research for helping your entrepreneur or startup. I'm also wearing the Real Phonic Radio shirt. Real Phonic Radio has an event here once a month that is American-based roots music that in this wonderful venue here, great sounds. I think if you stop, you'll be surprised what a nice intimate atmosphere it is. And the many other events that we have here at the Hill are for doing sales and for learning about being able to get your startup support. So thank you again for coming.
Spend some time